Hi. In this lesson, you can expect to see me going through AQA Language Paper 1, which is worth half of your marks for your language GCSE. So you will earn half of your total marks in 1 hour and 45 minutes, okay? This is an example of what you can expect. So if you haven't been in mock exams or you haven't seen this, this is to help you understand. And if you have, then this will also help you get to know it better. You will have 1 hour and 45 minutes, which you might be aware of if you've taken, if you've taken your mock exams. It's approximately a mark a minute with reading time, but I don't recommend that you read the extract first. I'll show you what I mean in a second. Ideally, you won't have to read this stuff on the first page because you will know. You have to use a black pen, you need to answer all questions, keep track of your time. Okay, half of your marks you get for section A, half of your marks you get for section B. Now, if you look over here, question 1 is worth 4 marks, question 2 is worth 8 marks, question 3 is worth 8 marks, question 4 is worth 20 marks. That is 40 marks, and this is section A. Question 5 is worth 40 marks, that's section B. And it's divided into 2 aspects. AO5, Assessment Objective 5, is worth 24 marks, and Assessment Objective 6 is worth 16 marks. Okay, and I'll break that down for you in a bit. 80 marks total on the exam. Now already this causes some students to have some real big anxiety because there's a lot of stuff that you have to do in 1 hour and 45 minutes. It's worth keeping in mind that in order to get a 9, and I'm checking here, hold on, only 3.6% of students last year got a 9. In order to achieve a 9, you only have to get 59 marks out of 80, which means you can miss 21 marks and still get a 9. I hope that makes you feel a little bit better. In order to get an 8, well, let's go down to 4. The 4 is the minimum you need to pass. And in order to get a 4 last year, you had to achieve 35 marks out of 80. Okay? Now this is always a little bit different. Every year the grade boundaries change depending on how well the students did overall. But last year, all you had to get to achieve a pass on this paper was 35 marks. So I hope that helps you feel a bit more relaxed. You don't have to be perfect. And in fact, you won't be perfect, and that's okay. 35 marks means that you can miss 45 marks and still pass, okay? So after you go through this, it tells you to spend 15 minutes reading through the source and all 5 questions. I don't recommend that you read the source before you start. You read the first question so you understand what you're doing. Question 1 is always a comprehension question. Read the first part of the source from lines 1 to 4. Now this is the point that I recommend my students go to the source and draw a box around lines 1 to 4 and only read lines 1 to 4 before they answer the questions, okay? And you can use parts of quotations to answer it. You don't want to put long sentences in there. I'll go into detail with this in future, but you draw a line, or draw a box around the sources and you answer that. Then you move on to question 2. Now question 2, similarly, isn't asking you to read the whole source. It's lines 5 to 15. And just to make sure that it's very clear, they've included this part of the source here, okay? So you don't even have to go back to the insert. But what you do need to make sure you know is what to expect for question 2. And all of the lessons coming up will help you know what to expect, how to access the marks, how to be more confident, and how to do your best in a specific period of time. Okay? So for question 1, let me back up to that because we are talking about time. For question 1, it's worth 4 marks. You also have to read. So you want to take about 5 minutes to answer this. You've taken 2 or 3 to get to grips to it, but you should be no more than 8 minutes into the exam before you move on to question 2. So question 2 is worth 8 marks, but you also have to read some. So you should aim to spend about 10 minutes. If you are more than 20 minutes into your exam by this point, drop the pen and carry on. You do not want to spend too much time on these questions. Do your best in the 10 minutes that you have. Keep track of time as you're going through, and you'll do a lot better. Okay? Now, these things here, you could include the writer's choice of words and phrases, language features and techniques, sentence forms. That's great. But if you're confident in what to expect for question 2, you don't need to pay much attention to this. Essentially, it wants you to analyze language connected to a question. Okay? Then you go to question 3. And question 3 is the structure question. Question 3 is also worth 8 marks. And it will always be the same. The question will change for question 2 about language. But for the structure question, it will always be the same. How has the writer structured the text to interest you as a reader? Okay, structure techniques. Students tend to freak out by this because they don't know what structure means. But actually, if you have a good list of techniques to consider, it's not very hard. It's not nearly as hard as it seems. A few of the lessons in this course will help you feel more confident with that. Okay, and again, they do break it down. How does it start? How does the extract start? It doesn't have to be anything more complex than that. What is the writer doing at the start? Is they introducing a character or the setting? How does it begin and why? And then where's the shift? Where does a change take place? Because in every single one of the extracts AQA uses, there's some sort of shift or change. And it usually has to do with how the narrator, how the character in the story feels about something. There will always be a change. Okay? And then how does it end as a result of that? Really, if you can identify those 3 things, your quid's in and you can move on. Okay? So again, we want to go for, you do have to read the whole source here. So 15 minutes here because you have to read the source. So you're 35 minutes into your 105 minutes that you have for this exam, and you're on to question 4. So question 4 is worth 20 marks. Again, I recommend that you draw a box around the part of the extract that it asks you to focus on. Then it will always give you a quote. And sometimes that quote makes this feel a little bit complex. But essentially, it's an opinion statement. Somebody is giving an opinion, and it's asking you how much you agree with that opinion. Okay? It always helps to at least partially agree. You have to validate the opinion to some degree. Okay? Partially agreeing, but then finding an area where you can disagree will usually get you the most marks. Okay? But definitely find a point of agreement. If you can't agree in any way, pretend like you do for at least some aspect. Okay? And you start at the beginning of that bit and you work your way down. And again, there are specific parts of this course that will help you with that. So it's 20 marks. You were already 35 minutes into the exam. If you spend 20 minutes on this, you're 55 minutes into the exam. Okay? And if you have 105 minutes, oh, here's testing my math. That means you have, does that mean you have 55 minutes left? 50 plus, no, you have 50 minutes left. You have 50 minutes left. I teach English, right? But I do work on my numeracy. I do like numeracy, but I'm not 100% on it all the time. And that's okay. We're not supposed to be 100%, are we? We're just supposed to be improving and challenging ourselves. So you've got 50 minutes left. You go straight to that creative writing task. This is section B, creative writing. We recommend that you plan your answer before you begin. Okay, definitely plan your answer. Now, you're going to have 2 options. And in this one, a magazine has asked for contributions. Okay, so it's for a magazine. Either describe a place at sunset or write a story. The important thing, and what students oftentimes get wrong, and what I'm frustrated about, even if you're just describing, you need to have some sort of conflict. Because if there's no conflict, then there's not going to be any shift, and there's not going to be any change. And if there's no change, it's not going to be interesting, and you're not going to be able to access the top marks. So even if you're doing something that's descriptive, you need to find a problem or a conflict that you can escalate and solve. There has to be a shift. Okay, so you spend about 5 minutes planning this, and again, there are other lessons in this that helps you prepare for that, and then you begin. You could write a story about a new beginning, but that's what you're aiming to do. You need to focus on really good vocabulary words. You need to make sure you use paragraphs, and you need to have some sort of narrative structure. So that's what to expect for one half of your GCSE, worth 80 marks in 1 hour and 45 minutes. Please keep going so that you can learn each of the skills and the knowledge connected to it.